Welcome to Fireside Nets, brought to you by Empire Sports Media. We are your hosts. I'm Spen, he's Pete, and we are your number one spot for everything Brooklyn Nets basketball. Hashtag Nets World, hashtag Mikal Bridges knocking shots down, hashtag Ben 10 will always be my friend. New intro. Pete, what did we think?
I love it. I love it. Ben 10 will always be my friend.
He will. He will. I mean that. We do have a guest today. If you are in the elite community that is the Nets Twitter universe, you will absolutely know who this man is. We welcome Jay from BK onto the show for the first time ever. Jay, what's happening, man? How are you living?
What's up, everybody? I'm great. Yourself?
I cannot complain. It's Monday night. I'm a little bit tired, but that's just because my wife cooked a nice meal. I ate. I worked. Normal Monday. It's time for podcasting. I got to suck it up. Pete, how are you doing?
Let's go. We got Jay from BK doing the face reveal today. You surprised me with that, but I'm hyped. We were off camera. I got all hyped for a second. I'm ready to go. Let's start this shit up.
All right, let's do it. So let's get to our first segment. Mikal Bridges was recently interviewed on Podcast P with Paul George. For those who don't know, that's Paul George's podcast. And just some really cool sound bites. He talked about how him and his teammates have Ben Simmons back. He was adamant about that they're going to support him and give him everything he needs this season while he's a Brooklyn Net. He talked about how he would rather get a triple-double than score 30 a night because he wants to see his teammates shine. He even talked about before he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets, he joked with the Nets staff during the game that Phoenix played Brooklyn on how he would see them soon. And because, the rumors were swirling around KD getting traded. And he just seems like the most down-to-earth guy in the world from a likability standpoint. He is a superstar. But, Jay, what is the most we can really expect from Mikal Bridges on the court? Because obviously everybody loves him off the court.
We can expect him to average at least 5 more points moving forward, which I think he can be a solid 25-point scorer for us. But I like the way he talked about the other intangibles and him bringing other parts to the game. We know he's coming with the defense. Thankfully, defense travels, but also wanting to get rebounds, wanting to get assists, and triple-double means you're active every second that you're on the floor on both ends, because you can grab rebounds on both ends. Assists means you have to be paying attention to the game. And sometimes he knows as the number one option currently, they're going to be sending him doubles. So you have to find that open man, hopefully in everything, because, and let me add this, I don't know where the conversation will go, because we don't have 3-point shooters anymore like we did last year. Arguably, our top 5 3-point shooters are not on the team anymore. So him finding someone out the double will get his assist numbers up. And it could be someone who's cutting to the rim. It doesn't always have to be a jump shot. That's what we've lacked for a long time, cutters. And he's a cutter. So someone cutting to the rim. But just seeing him as a more well-rounded player that he hasn't been able to show, that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Pete, you are on mute.
I'm a pro at this. All right. I was going to ask you, he's our best defender, right? But now that he's going to be getting more of the scoring load and whatnot, do you still see him guarding the other team's best player?
Sure, why not?
Think about all the games that he's played, right? All the minutes he's put up. Are you nervous about him still being the quote-unquote Iron Man for a whole 82-game season when he is going to be doubled now? He is going to be the focus of the other team's defense?
I'm not. And I'm not because I think more, my mindset is more old school basketball, not this new age Greg Popovich led resting basketball. My thought process is, and I'm not, people hear what they want to hear. I'm not comparing him to Kobe Bryant, but when Kobe was playing, Kobe was clearly the offensive force. And he was the best defender on the Lakers also. So he was getting triple teamed, and it didn't stop him from still giving full force on defense to bring it. And I'm not comparing him to LeBron. LeBron James with the Miami Heat was arguably the best player on the Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade sometimes. LeBron was the best player. LeBron was committed to defense also, even though he was getting doubled. You can't look. My expectation is that he's 26 now, about to be 27, so he's in his prime. If he can't give full effort on both sides of the court, what are we doing here?
I think that's a fair point. And Pete, you said that Mikal Bridges is our best defender. Are we sure it's not Nick Claxton? Jay, I mean, who is it? Is it Mikal or Nick Claxton?
That guy. You know what I mean? On the perimeter. Do I gotta spell it out?
On the perimeter guy. You gotta spell it out. We got some pretty good defenders on this team.
He knows what I meant.
Jay, before we move on from this Mikal interview, I just wanted to know what did you think was the most meaningful soundbite that you saw from this interview?
For me, him talking about Cam Thomas, because look, the coaches would not admit to you, the front office would not admit to you. When you hear other NBA players talk about Cam Thomas, they have a certain level of respect for his offensive ability. You've never heard any of them talk about, well, he needs to learn how to pass. Because players don't look at the game like that. And so was it game 4? I think it was game 4, where they brought, he's no longer on the team. They brought Patty Mills in the game before they brought Cam Thomas in the game. Patty plays no defense. He wasn't hitting any shots, so you can't say he was putting the game for his gravity. He had no gravity. He was a terrible shooter at this point. He never passed the ball. So there was no reason for him to be put in the game. So clearly it was something personal. So to hear Mikal talk about Cam and he was telling you about his preparation and how hard he works, that's subtly saying, look, the guy has earned playing time. Like what are we doing? He also, and I'll tie in something else that he said. He talked about his desire to win in that interview. If Cam Thomas gives us an opportunity to score more points, which is what we struggled with in the Philly series, why wouldn't he play? So I think him bigging up Cam, who everybody knows puts in a lot of work, I think that was a vet push play. Like, yo, this young kid, he's earned his minutes. Stop playing with him.
Talking about how, he says that he wants to win and whatnot. What do you think about the offseason so far? Are you surprised by the direction Sean Marks went? And do you believe Mikal Bridges saying that the roster's almost set? Do you think there's going to be an additional move or two? I know during training camp they like to add maybe 1 or 2 more guys that wind up making the team, but what's your thoughts on that?
I like the company answer by Brooklyn Bridges. Do I think it's set? No. Hopefully Sean is looking for the right opportunity if the Dame trade goes through to potentially get in on that. When the Quitter James trade to the Clippers goes through, potentially get in on that. You leave yourself open with options. Based on Sean Marks' own words, where he said we were going to get bigger, and I'm not listening to anybody who says Noah Clowney fits our getting bigger part, especially when they said he'll probably spend the year in Long Island. So we're not getting bigger if he's not on the team. If he's away from the team, we have not gotten bigger. So with Sean Marks' own words, we're going to get bigger, we're going to get nastier, and we're going to get Brooklyn grit. Those are his own words. Like, at a certain point, we have to hold people to their words and what they say. Like, Spen just talked about his wife. Spen, you already know, as a husband, if you tell your wife you're going to do something, she's going to hold you to what you said you're going to do. So that I don't look at the team as it's complete, because according to the general manager, he did not do what he said he would do. So I don't look at it as it's complete. And let me add this. I had a conversation back in June. Joey was traded first, and then Patty was traded a couple days later. I was completely shocked. And I spoke to a few different people on the team. And I said, why did they trade Joey and Patty, right? And it was basically salary dumps what they did. And this is what I was told. Now, I did not want to take it for face value because we have two huge trade exceptions. We have the Joey one, which is 19 point something, almost 20 million.
19.9. Yep.
Okay, so that can be a phenomenal player, right? And we have the other one. Is it 17? I think it's 17 point something.
I'm not sure on the second one.
But it's somewhere. I'm pretty sure between 17 and 18.
You're correct.
So it's another player who would definitely be in the rotation. So I look at those two, and a lot of us fans have said maybe they'll use those to trade. The conversation I had about why they traded Joey and Patty, almost verbatim, I was told they have to pay for Cam Johnson. They're using that money to pay for Cam Johnson. Now, I've not looked up the salaries, and Nets Twitter went crazy about his salary and what it would be. But Joey and Patty together combined for about $26 million for this coming season. Cam Johnson's salary for this season, I don't think is $26 million. So basically, they got rid of those two, as I was told, to pay Cam Johnson. They've not added any salary, which I have a problem with that because everybody else that they've announced has been a minimum guy. Basley's minimum, Lonnie Walker the fourth is minimum, and Dennis Smith Jr. Those three are minimums. So, and Shams, I don't like the wording that Shams said that Dennis Smith Jr. was our number one target. He said something like that. You can't be serious when you say things like that. You've not added salary, and look, I'll argue with anybody. Don't tell me that you've added talent either. Are these guys talented? Yes. But you're asking people to play above their means to fill in blanks. We still don't have that big, nasty Brooklyn grit guy that Sean promised we were going to get. And I like what Coach Vaughn did because he said it the day before in the presser that that's what he wanted. And then Sean said the next day that he was going to get that because that's what the coach wanted. Until you fulfilled that, and Noah Clowney, again, does not fulfill that. Until you fulfill that, I can't believe that the team is set the way that it is. If you're waiting to do a move beginning of August, mid-August, fine. Training camp starts at the end of September. Cool. But there should be at least another one or two moves to be made for roster pieces. Guys who will make the rotation, not just guys who will be invited to training camp.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Jay, do you see Marks potentially going into the season with this team and making an in-season move for one of those Brooklyn grit guys you were talking about? Do you think he's doing that in his back pocket, or do you think it's more of a waiting game to see where the cards fall with this Damian Lillard trade?
I think it's a combination. And it's whichever makes the most sense at the time that it happens. Like I don't see Portland letting this drag on into the season as they say they would. It doesn't make sense for them to do that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Dame has supposedly, drawn his line in the sand. But at a certain point, I would think if they're, because it seems that with the statement about trading Joey and Patty being a money thing for Cam Johnson, if they're so serious about staying underneath the second tax, I got it. That means you're going to have to trade somebody. And the three guys who top that list of being traded are going to be Spencer Dinwiddie, because he makes $20 million. Dorian Finney-Smith, I think he makes about 12. And Royce O'Neal. And he makes, I think he's 9.5 guaranteed, something like that, somewhere around 10.
Yep, you got it.
So it would be those guys. I think Doe would be the last person to be traded out of those three. That doesn't mean that he wouldn't be traded because he arguably has the best contract, even though the other two are expiring contracts. But look, I would agree with it if you're getting us, again, rotation pieces, and if it's a Brooklyn grit guy. There are not many guys who fit that big Brooklyn grit nasty type player. One guy who fits that, and it's no getting around it. They're a team who's up against the tax. Maybe they'll want to sell low. Maybe they'll just want a draft pick. I'm not married to any of these draft picks, personally. A guy who fits that is Bobby Portis.
Oh,
And Bobby Portis immediately comes to this team and starts.
yeah, easy. He's the 4, right? You move Cam to the 3, Mikal becomes the 2, and then you start Dinwiddie or Ben, whoever. Yeah, I'm with that.
So we're going into training camp, right? Let's say Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the guys that maybe gets traded, or are we looking at Ben being the point guard and maybe offloading Spencer later? Or is it just, Ben Simmons is coming back from an injury. He's going to come off the bench. It's known. But then what happens if Spencer Dinwiddie does go down or he is traded in the middle of the year? Are you comfortable with the Dennis Smith Jr. taking over major minutes?
No, I'm not. But I've been advocating that the 2 positions that we need the most, even including signing Dennis Smith Jr., was point guard and power forward, or a stretch big. Someone, not necessarily someone to take over for Clax, but a stretch big, preferably someone who could play next to Clax.
That's Bobby Portis. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that's Bobby Portis in a nutshell. I mean, it's so funny. You think about the Nets power forwards, like since Kenyon Martin, we haven't really had any good ones. You had Chris Humphries, who was a joke. You had KG way past his prime. You have not had a real 4 on this team. Kevin Durant played the 4 while he was here. Kevin Durant's not a 4. That was a huge problem for the Nets, is they lean so heavily on Claxton, on Andre Drummond, and on DeAndre Jordan, freaking LaMarcus Aldridge, and you had these bigs, and they didn't have any help in the front court, on the boards, nothing. So Bobby Portis is a guy to me, Jay. He would be perfect, like any sort of stretch 4 who can shoot the 3, which is why I looked at the Noah Clowney signing, and like, he's not really a stretch 4. He's not really anything. He's sort of a project. So I agree with you in the sense that they did not get a big. We don't know what Day'Ron Sharp's going to be. He's still a question mark. What was the biggest problem with the Brooklyn Nets in the postseason? It was that we got killed inside. Is that we could not stop Philly from getting to the rim and dominating the paint. Yes, Claxton was great, but I'm ranting right now. I understand wholeheartedly your point in terms of what we need. Why Marks hasn't done it yet, it boggles my mind. But I digress. We can move on.
Hey, Spen, I want to jump in there with part of you ranting, and I'm glad you did rant. You said that we weren't stopping Philly inside and on the boards, right?
Yes.
In the playoffs. That included when Joel Embiid got injured and was gone. We still weren't. Paul Reed looked like a damn all-star.
He put up double-doubles. Double-doubles.
That was without Joel Embiid. They were still dominating us on the inside.
Yeah. I got a question now. Who starts at the 4? Opening day.
Right now, Doe.
Yeah.
Currently, Doe. Dodo does.
Who starts at point guard? Dinwiddie?
He would have to. Because
right.
how healthy has Ben going to be when the season starts?
Your guess is as good as mine.
No one knows, right? They've been feeding us, right?
They can project. Yeah, but they won't know that until he gets on the court. And there's one thing practicing in the summer, right? There's another thing actually playing in an NBA game. Because even as Paul George talked about on his podcast today, we've all seen the workouts. Ben Simmons during the summer is doing things that you've not seen him do consistently in NBA games. Fadeaways, 3-point shots, all this other stuff. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that consistently in NBA games. So we look, that's a criticism I have of Sean Marks, man. It's too many maybes. I don't want to go into the season saying maybe this guy will be able to do whatever. I'd like to go in with some guarantees. I'm going to guarantee you that Mikal Bridges is going to be a 20 to 25 point scorer and play hellacious defense. We know that. We got too many maybes with other guys. So we're hoping that Ben Simmons is healthy and ready to go by opening night. But we don't know.
My next, I'm going to say, how do you feel about Net fans, Nets Twitter in general? Are we overreacting too much to all the stuff that we're fed from the Nets? Or is it, warranted considering all the stuff that we have been told? Oh, this guy's coming back. It's a ramp up. The ramp up becomes an extra month. It becomes an extra 2 months. And the whole time we're just left wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah, a lot of times we overreact. I would give a counter to that. Sometimes the overreactions or even the reactions are based on information that should have never been told to us to begin with. Like they volunteer certain information that don't tell us these things. If you don't want us to overreact as a fan base, right, or react as a fan base, like me quoting Sean Marks and saying that, and this came from the coach, but when you say we're going to get bigger, nastier, bring in players who have that Brooklyn grit, you didn't have to tell us that. Of course we're going to react because certain things you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell us that somebody's ramping up, somebody will be back in a week, somebody will be back in a month. You say, look, the person is progressing. They'll be back whenever the medical staff deems that they're ready to come back.
I feel like it can be a game sometimes with Sean Marks and the way that he communicates with the fan base. I don't know if you feel differently, but I agree with you. Sometimes, they give us this information, but they don't tell us the whole story. They give us pieces and they leave, some things out and it makes Nets fans go crazy. And I don't know if that's a common sort of theme with all fan bases or just with our fan bases. Like, how are you familiar with any other fan bases? And if the GM and the owner communicate with the fan base like Marks and Sy do with us?
I'm familiar with quite a few other fan bases. I don't know another fan base where the owner is blocking countless people on Twitter, which I think is hilarious all of itself. And I don't like giving the X credit, but a lot of times I don't even remember who their general manager is. You know why? Because he never talks. When have you heard him talk? And I keep wanting to say Scott Perry, but I know it's not Scott. I know Scott Perry is not the GM anymore.
Is it Leon Rose?
Leon Rose, yeah. Leon Rose is their GM. Used to be an agent. When have you heard him talk?
Never. Never.
Your GM doesn't have to talk. And you don't. One thing you also don't hear about. You don't hear about them getting fined for him not talking, do you? So it's not a necessity that Sean does all of these pressers. He doesn't have to. And if the NBA gives them flack, you could just point the finger and say, whoa, wait a minute. Right across the bridge, those guys ain't doing it either. Like, what are we doing? If we're going to be equitable, if I have to do it, they have to do it too.
That's a good point. And to kind of like carry on to that, I was listening to one of the Nets Twitter spaces, and you said something that was very, very interesting to me. You made a point of how the Nets front office, or maybe I misheard, maybe I don't know, part of the office actually listens to the spaces and actually spends a lot of time looking at Nets fans' reactions on Twitter, kind of trying to create the narrative or push a narrative in a certain direction. How real is that? And is Sean Marks on his phone 2 hours a day responding from a sock account?
I don't know that it's him specifically, but I've talked to multiple assistant coaches who say they've been on spaces, say that they've been on Nets Twitter seeing what's going on. I've spoken to a number of people within the organization who have been like, "Yo, it's funny the stuff y'all be saying," or "Look at this tweet," or what have you. They're very aware of what's going on and what's being said. Very aware, to the effect that I've met certain people just walking around in Brooklyn or maybe at a Liberty game, and I'll introduce myself, and they be like, "Yeah, I know who you are. You're Jay from BK," and I'll be like, "Okay, nice to meet you." I
That's
mean,
hilarious.
they pay attention to every space that goes on. Everyone, not we have hours. There are a number of people who have other different net spaces. They pay attention to all of them.
That
Are
is
you gonna watch
crazy
this?
to hear. Yeah, I mean, I hope they pay attention to all Nets podcasts too, right? Because we're right up there.
They pay attention to the podcast also, and it's easier, I'll say, for you all in the other podcasts because your stuff is recorded. It's not as if they have to be in there on real time.
Right. That makes sense. And listen, it's got to be someone's job, I guess, for the Brooklyn Nets to take all this stuff in, right, and then report back to the front office if they hear anything or I guess witness anything that the Nets organization doesn't already know. Because occasionally players will hop in these spaces, you'll have sources hop in these spaces, so it's interesting. And if you're not familiar, Jay from BK is a big player in one of the biggest net spaces that's out there on Twitter. So join the next net space. I used to join him all the time. I don't know why I stopped. Nothing really happened. I sort of forgot about him, but I do want to start attending them again because they're really great. Now, once the season starts, that's actually the best time to join the net spaces. But Jay, I did want to get to this segment before we do rapid fire. It's called "What Does Jay from BK Think?" So I hope I didn't lose. There we go. We're back. I'm just going to ask you 3 or 4 questions, and I just want to know your thoughts on these individuals. Are you ready?
Yeah, good.
What does Jay from BK think of Jacques Vaughn?
As a person, I love him. As a coach, the jury is still out. I'm extremely excited that he was allowed. He is the first coach in the Sean Marks regime that was allowed to pick some of his own assistant coaches. So his success or failure the finger can't be pointed at anybody else.
Right.
Not too much, because he picked a number of the guys that are around him. And I'll even say he kept on Trevor Hendry, who I thought one way about, and then I learned a lot more about. Trevor Hendry has been with the Nets since Billy King.
Oh, wow.
He has worked his behind off. From my understanding, he's one of the first, if not the first in the building, one of the last, if not the last to leave, getting video ready, getting guys prepared, what have you. I like some of the names that Coach Vaughn has put around him. I really like Kevin Ollie. Kevin Ollie is going to be a head coach in NBA soon. I wish they had been able to keep Coach Smoke. And people hear me say that and don't know that's Royal Ivy. He's another up-and-coming name who I really wish they had kept him. But you know how important he was because Coach Udoka wanted him. And right. I think Coach Udoka is one of the 3 best coaches in the NBA. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I like what Coach Vaughn appears to be building, especially since a number of NBA players have admitted, and Spencer Dinwiddie admitted it about the Nets last year, that they don't practice. And when I say practice, they don't scrimmage against each other during the season. So there needs to be a focus on one-on-one development type work for guys. And he has a number of development coaches on the staff who can take 3 or 4 guys, 2 or 3 guys, and work with them specifically on certain skills. And one guy that Coach Vaughn kept who has been phenomenal, and he worked with Clax from at least 2 years ago, Coach RFK, Coach Ryan Forehand Kelly. That guy's player development, if you go to any Nets games, whether at home or on the road, you'll see him on the court with guys before the games, putting in a lot of development work. So I like Coach Vaughn, and I think I'm interested to see what he's going to do this season with his guys around him.
That's a fair answer. I know you were an Udoka guy. I wanted him as well. But I think that, and I follow you on Twitter. I think that you've sort of given Vaughn a chance, and what you've seen so far, the jury's still out. But I agree. Whatever happens, it's going to be on him because he's had the autonomy to pick his staff. Next up, I'm going to give you a choice, Jay. You can either tell me what you think of James Harden or Kevin Durant. Your call.
I can do both, and
Let's hear it.
I'll be quick with. I'm gonna forever call him Quitter James, QJ. I went to the Utah Nets game in Utah 2 seasons ago when he sat out with a fictitious injury, and I say that because I usually go to at least 5 away games a season, but I go to more than that because that includes going to X games at the Garden. It includes going to the Philly games, right? But I usually go on 2 road trips. That was one of the road trips I went on. I went to Utah and then I flew to Denver. Quitter James didn't play in the Utah game, and he was coming up with injuries that made no sense. And then instead of flying with the team to Denver, that man went to Las Vegas. And it's like, okay, look, man, you already know your name is big. Just tell them to get you out of there. You don't have to do all of that side stuff. And I'm big on karma. Some people talk about the basketball gods. I tell my sons this all the time. You can't cheat the game. James Harden likes to cheat the game. And it's come back to bite him. But, he's not on the team anymore. I wish him no good things. He's a quitter. When it comes to KD, I appreciate everything he gave on the court. I think he's very entertaining on Twitter. And I'll even give you a bonus. When you look at, and I usually don't say KD, I usually don't say James, I'm going to even talk about Kyrie. The type of person that Kyrie is, you can see how personal he is and how much he attempts to bond with fans, right? KD is not that type of person at all. He likes to troll, and he's not personable like that. Even when you see him at games, he'll sign a lot of autographs, but in terms of being personal, he's not like that. I appreciate him going all out for the Brooklyn Nets, but there was something that became obvious. I know they say it's freak injuries. KD's not been healthy since when? Golden State?
Yeah, since before that, the year they lost to the Raptors in the finals.
Right. So and he's getting older. I'm not wishing injury on him. I like the Mikal Bridges trade because Mikal Bridges is younger and he's healthy. I don't know that KD will ever have a fully healthy season again. So yeah. He's a phenomenal player, but health-wise, and I'm not putting anything on him, he's just not been healthy in a lot of years. I don't know that he's going to ever be healthy again.
I mean, he was in Phoenix 10 minutes, and he slipped, and he messed up his ankle, and he was out for multiple weeks. Like, who thought that's insane? I want to talk about the basketball gods. One of the best players in the league demands a trade to go play with Devin Booker and immediately gets hurt. I don't know. I don't believe in karma, but that was just a weird coincidence.
On the layup line.
On the layup line. Yeah, we're not even talking the game. We're talking in the layup line. It's insane. The last question in this segment, it's not an individual player question, but what does Jay from BK think of the Brooklyn Nets' chances of being competitive this year?
What? As currently constructed?
Yes. I didn't say winning.
What do you
All right.
what do you consider competitive?
Probably a 5 to an 8 seed would be competitive. Anything less than an 8 seed, if you're a play-in team, I don't think you're a competitive team.
What do I think about us being competitive? As currently constructed, I think the best we would do would be a play-in team.
Wow.
As currently constructed. And I say that because there's always certain levels of attrition in the East and the West. In certain teams that you think are going to be a guaranteed playoff team, they're not necessarily a guaranteed playoff team. But if I had to guess, I'll say I'm not going to say Philly because you don't know what Philly is going to be. But I can say I think Boston, Milwaukee, Miami, Cleveland, and even the Knicks. Those 5, I'm going to say I'm a guarantee they're going to be better than us. As currently constructed. Some people would argue me down about that. And look, I don't believe in giving the Knicks any credit for anything. That's one of the reasons I call them the Knicks. I'm always going to call them the Knicks. But I am almost positive those 5 teams will be better than us. That means at best we number 6. And that's if everything falls into place. That doesn't take into consideration other teams who had injury issues last year and certain things may have not, fallen the way that they should have fallen. I think Atlanta will probably be better than us. With a full year with Quinn Snyder as coach, not coming in the middle of the season as their coach. So I think the best that we can do would be a play-in team as currently constructed. Competitive, I expect guys to compete on a nightly basis just from the standpoint that some of the guys that we have, they're used to winning. That includes Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. They were both in the finals a couple years ago. Dodo and SD, they were both in the conference finals last year. Royce was with Utah, and Utah was competitive for a number of years. There are a number of guys who are used to making long playoff runs. So I expect for us to be competitive. Does that translate into wins? Nah, I don't see how it does.
Are we like 1 or 2 injuries away from being a bottom 5 team in the lottery?
I would hope not, because we don't own our own draft pick this year.
That's what scares me.
Like, we have no picks in this coming draft, first or second round.
Yep. Only 2 first rounders in the next 3 years. And that's after next year. I think they have the Phoenix pick and our pick, I think, if I remember correct, something like that. But it's only 2 first rounders in the next 3 years, which is ridiculous.
It doesn't benefit us to semi-tank, per se.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single Nets fan out there that wants to see us tank or be in the bottom 5 next year. So let's hope that this team plays to their potential. All right, we're going to finish the show with a rapid fire. So, Jay, I got 10 questions. You can take your time with the answers, but they're all relevant. They're all Nets related. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Number 1, favorite Nets player of all time?
On the court or off the court?
Let's say both. Combination.
Off the court, Spencer Dinwiddie.
That's Pete's guy.
My guy.
And just for, if anyone hasn't heard before, when my son was, I believe, 5, we were at practice in the park. He was one of the children. They brought a bunch of children down on the court to like stretch with the players. My son was too cool for school then. He's still too cool for school now as a 10-year-old. And he did not want to do anything. Spencer Dinwiddie, and interestingly enough, Coach Vaughn also, they brought my son on the other side of the court, and they were like just doing stretching with him, like putting up shots, what have you. And it was a very personal moment that for me, a lot of times when people say I post bail for Kyrie because he's done things for my children also, or other players, yeah, because for me, being a father trumps being a sports fan, and it always will. So off the court, Spencer Dinwiddie. On the court, as short-lived as it was, I'll say when I it changed for a number of years. It was Kenyon Martin, and then I met him, and he's an asshole. So it couldn't be him anymore. It turned into Kyrie Irving on the court because he's done things that I've never seen a Nets player do in a game, and that includes Vince Carter. Vince Carter, we all look forward to the dunks. Kyrie, you know how certain players always have like a signature move? What's Kyrie's signature move? You don't know what he's going to do when he has the ball. And he has so many things. One of the trips I took this year was to Toronto, and I was recording when he hit the game winner. And it was electric. I was in the building when he did the putback dunk. Barclays Center has not been that loud in a very long time. He did some things that first game against Minnesota when he scored 50, even though we lost. He's done some things that I'm like, I wish it had translated different, and a number of things had gone differently in terms of what he did, what the organization did, and he could have brought us a championship. But for skill on the court, I've not seen a player like him in a Nets uniform.
All right. So Dinwiddie off the court, Kyrie on the court. Number 2, Jay, what is your favorite food at Barclays Stadium?
Wow. Downstairs, I would say, and when I say downstairs, I mean in the Qatar Club, probably sushi.
Okay.
Upstairs, wow, they've changed the food so much. Let me think of something. There's a spot outside of Section 3 that has lobster rolls.
Oh my God! Really? They got lobster rolls at Barclays?
They have lobster rolls, and they have lobster rolls. They have clobster rolls, they call it, which is snow crab and lobster roll. And it's on buttery rolls. It's warm. That for me is top notch.
All right, sushi and lobster rolls. That's a solid answer. Number 3, Jay, who is your favorite Nets head coach of all time?
Wow. Favorite Nets head coach of all time. I'm gonna give you a least favorite also. My favorite Nets head coach of all time, seriously, and he doesn't get the respect that I think he deserves or earned, was PJ Carlesimo. He took over the team at a very bad time, and he willed us to one of our best seasons ever. And he wasn't even considered for the head coaching position after that. So I like what he did in spite of the obstacles that were placed in front of him. And my least head coach of all time is Lawrence Frank, man. And one of the things I can't stand Rod Thorne about is that he fired that man the game before he knew he was going to break the record for most losses. I thought Lawrence Frank was a horrible coach. Lawrence Frank, and it's funny where y'all talk about Twitter and them listening to Twitter. They used to, back in the New Jersey days, they used to have talks with the GM before the game. Like they would invite the fans, season ticket holders before the game to talk with the GM. And I told Rod Thorne before one of the games, I said, you all tout Lawrence Frank as if he's some genius. I said, every game at halftime, the team doesn't come out until about 2 minutes left before halftime is over. And you wonder why we come out at halftime and we look like shit in the third quarter. The very next game, they were out with about 7 or 8 minutes to go. They were paying attention then. They still pay attention now.
That is
But
wild.
I love PJ Carlesimo, man. And I think he's very underrated and not talked about enough.
All right, fair enough. Number 4, favorite Nets moment of all time. You named a few good ones earlier. What is your all-time favorite Nets moment?
Wow. Man, and this, this is how you know these questions aren't known beforehand. Like you didn't email me or message me the questions
No,
because man,
this
that
is
is a
straight. We want it off the dome, Jay. They were never going to give any of our guests the questions beforehand, ever.
wow. Favorite Nets moment of all time. I'll say for sentimental reasons, Game 7 against Milwaukee. Even though we did not win, I had surgery the day before. Yeah, I had surgery the day before, and my doctor said that I should not. I could go to the game, you know, but be careful. Basically, I took my whole family to the game, and the excitement that we all had when KD hit that what would have been three that wasn't a three, we were all just next level excited.
Yep.
And to have my family there with me was something that was really special.
That's not a bad moment. I think mine is 2 games earlier, Game 5, when KD not single-handedly with the help of Jeff Green, but when he beat Milwaukee. That was one of the most insane performances I've ever seen. Number 6, name something about Sean Marks that you like.
Something about Sean Marks that I like. I can name a few things about Sean Marks that I like.
All right.
I like that he's found some diamonds in the rough when we were a team that was going nowhere. And he was able to turn that around. I think that part is worn off, and it's the NBA is it should be a Janet Jackson type league. What have you done for me lately? I also like that. I like the opportunity, even though I don't like the idea of adding Adam Capehorn. I like the opportunity that he gives to G League coaches to break into the NBA. I think sometimes all what guys need is an in order to get their career going. And so the G League being a pipeline for the coaching staff to actually get their foot into the door, I think that's very important. I like that he's given Jeff Peterson an opportunity also. Jeff Peterson is a large unknown outside of NBA circles assistant GM who I think is going to be a phenomenal general manager in this league. And I also like years ago, I like the emphasis that he puts on family in terms of with the players. A lot of people don't know this, but the Nets have it where for everybody who has young children, they have babysitters and what have you in the arena. So
Wow.
if the wife or the girlfriend wants to watch the game, someone watches the players' children while they're able to sit out there and watch the game without having to worry about what is my 3-year-old or what is my 5-year-old. I got to keep them occupied. They don't do that. They actually provide sitters in the arena. They take them somewhere undisclosed, and allow them to just, be there as an adult. If they want to have a beverage, let them have a beverage. But I like that he puts the emphasis on family, and he even has some family trips that people are able to bring their family on trips. So I love that he puts an emphasis on family also, which that used to be a big part of the culture that they talked about, his emphasis on family.
All right, that's high praise. Some nice things about Sean Marks. If you
Absolutely.
can have any player in the NBA on the Nets, who would it be?
Can I change their contract or as is with the contract?
You can change the contract. Just someone you would just love to see in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. Could be again.
People gonna hate me for this, and I don't care. I'd really love to have Karl Anthony Towns on the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay. Any specific reason or just from a basketball fit?
from a basketball fit, because going towards what you said in terms of we've had some trash power forwards since Kenyon Martin. We coming up on damn near 20 years, man. It's been over 15 years since we had a real power forward on the team. He's able to be a power forward and center. He can shoot. And I think for me, a lot of people are not familiar with Big Cat, his father. And Karl Anthony Towns grew up an Knicks fan. I don't hold that against him. He also grew up a Yankees fan. I don't hold that against him either. I think that if he was closer to his father and home, I think that would allow him to take his game to another level. And I think he would be the best power forward that we've had since Kenyon Martin.
I was adamant a few weeks ago when the offseason started about moves the Nets should make, and Pete can back me on this. I wanted the Nets to make a move for Karl Anthony Towns. I still do. I think he just completes the roster so well. Look, I think if you're able to move Ben Simmons or keep whatever you do, he gives you another guy that can space the floor. He would work so perfectly with Mikal and Cam Johnson. Do a lot of dribble handoff action with Mikal. He comes off the ball great. I think Cat would be an excellent fit in Brooklyn. I 100% agree with you, and he'd be the first guy in a while to help Claxton on the boards. All right, a few more questions here. Number 7. This is kind of an interesting. This is one of those like philosophical questions. Are you glad we went through the Big 3 era, or do you wish we had never gone down that route in the first place?
No, I'm glad we went through it. I'm a gambler, so
Right.
whether I'm in Vegas and I can't stand gambling in Atlantic City, man, they got some crooked tables down there. But I'm a gambler, man. I don't. It's something I tell people a lot, Pete. I don't know your relationship status, right? Not inquiring either, but we know Spen is married, right? I believe in shooting your shot. I'm a firm believer in shooting your shot because, and I don't remember which athlete said this, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I would rather shoot my shot and strike out than not shoot my shot and wonder what could have been. I'm not one of these nostalgic, we should have kept the 2018, 2019 team together and seen how high we could go with them. No, you take Kyrie, you take KD, you trade for James, and see what you can do. It didn't work out. That's fine. I'd rather, look, I'm not one of these people who love the nostalgia, and I'd rather lose and be proud of the team that's on the court and playing hard. Hell no. I want a team that's a championship contender. And those teams were championship contenders. It just didn't work out.
What do they say? It is better to have loved and lost than to not loved at all. And I think if you don't go that route with KD and at least try with Kyrie and Harden, it's almost like you never gave it a shot. I agree. All right, 3 more questions. What is your favorite move of the offseason for the Brooklyn Nets so far? This could include any draft picks, any signings, any trades.
My favorite move, and this is from a number of conversations. People are going to want me to say my favorite move is trading Patrick. While I love that move, it's not my favorite move. My favorite move was drafting DW. I think DW is going to be a stud. He's putting in, from my understanding, he's been putting in a lot of work to the best of his ability in the off season. They have him on different training programs while he's rehabbing his foot to get ready. I think he is going to be a complete stud once he's healed. And there's no way he would have fallen to us if he was healthy. He would have been a high lottery pick. So that's my favorite move.
All right. I like that answer. I watched some of Derek Whitehead's highlights. He looks like the real deal. I'm excited for him to get healthy. I like the strategy that Marks took at point guard, right? You have Dinwiddie, you have Ben Simmons, you have Cam Thomas lurking, and then you have this guy from Duke in DW who's eventually going to be healthy, and no matter what, you're going to have options in the future for the point guard position. All right,
Well, he's
question
not a point
number.
guard.
He's not a point guard. I thought he was. He's not. What is he? A small forward?
He's a 2-3.
He's a
He can
2-3.
shoot. Reek
Oh.
can shoot. DW
Yeah,
can shoot.
That's why I saw he was a great 3-point shooter in college, but I thought for some reason he was listed as a point guard.
No, he's not a point.
All right.
Wing.
Well. Number 9, yes or no question. Is Mikal Bridges an all-star next season?
Yes.
All right, there you have it. And then the final question. This is the question I'm most proud of on this sheet. What makes Nets fans better than Knicks fans?
We're not as delusional. I think that's the main thing. I relate Knicks fans to, and I'll call them this, even though I don't usually call them this. I relate them to Dallas Cowboys fans. They are the most delusional fans that I've seen in the NBA. They think after they beat us, I would be in their spaces all the time. These people are talking about they going to the finals. They don't see a team in the East that can stop them. Jalen Brunson was all NBA. Emmanuel Quickly was better than Tyrese Maxey. Julius Randle was, I forgot who the hell they said he was better than. I'm talking about, they were talking themselves into being in the championship, and they were trying to figure out what team from the West they were going to play. They are so delusional. And I think the Nets have a bunch of delusional fans. They don't reach that level of delusion. And a number of people love trolling also. So, but the Knicks fans, they not trolling. They really believe this. And I think that's one of the things that separates us. I think a number of things that separates us is that I think Nets fans, especially fans who were fans when the team was in Jersey, I think they take more pride in the team's history than Knicks fans do. I don't think Knicks fans take pride in their history. And one of the reasons why I say that is because most of the Knicks fans that I hear talking about the team when it relates to their history, they never bring up Bernard King. They never bring up who I would argue is the greatest player in the franchise's history, partially, and he's really the only Knicks player that I respect. Captain Willis Reed. He went to my alma mater. We both went to Grambling State University. A lot of their fans have no reverence to certain legends from their past. We, as a fan base, we have reverence for, and I'm not talking about his off-the-court stuff because I'm not a fan. We have reverence for Jason Kidd. Right. A lot of us, we even overlook his migraines. We have reverence for Kenyon Martin. We have reverence for Derek Coleman. We have reverence for Kenny Anderson. We have reverence for Buck Williams, players from the team's history that I don't see a lot of Knicks fans having the same reverence for. I'll tie in something to that. That's one of the criticisms that I will say about Sean Marks. I don't think he gives a lot of the old players the love that they deserve in terms of bringing them back and incorporating them, relating them to the younger guys that we have on the team. Create that bond. Build that gap. Yes, we see Kerry Kittles. Yes, we see Albert King.
Richard Jefferson calls the game, so he's always there.
Right. He calls the games, but he's not as incorporated with the players as I think he should be.
Right.
And I would hope that they would do more of that. Get somebody to pull Cam Thomas to the side and bring him under their wing. Some of the younger rookies, and teach them about about the Nets history.
All right, that was a few good reasons why Nets fans are better than Knicks fans. Jay, we thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anybody or any organization, anything you would like to shout out before we wrap up?
Shout out you all, Fireside. Y'all been doing great, man. It's so many Nets podcasts.
Let's go.
Pete, you're a welcome addition, man. You are
Thank
welcome
you,
for
sir.
full-time addition.
Thank you.
I would tell you, man, you all, when I'm able to pop on your podcast, I've always entertained. I keep doing y'all thing. For everybody who has a Nets podcast, keep doing your thing. Everybody who has spaces, keep doing your thing. Look, at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, a lot of us are giving our opinions. It doesn't make anybody's opinion better than somebody else's. And I really wish Nets fans would learn to be a little bit more civil with each other. Because some of y'all take it too far, man. And that attempt at bullying other fans, come on, man. Can y'all stop? It's and I'll say this, there are some grown-ups in the Nets community who don't want to do the high school games and who has smoke for who off of Twitter and off of social media. Nah, man, some of us have wives and families, man. We grown-ups. If we disagree on something, cool. We don't have to agree on everything. I don't agree with myself on everything. So, but nah, shout out to everybody that's a Nets fan. Shout out to the Nets players, coaching staff, even shout out to the front office. Hopefully we're building to something that will result in the championship sometime in the near future.
All right, there you heard it, Jay from BK. Thank you again for coming on the show, and thanks to everyone for listening to another edition of Fireside Nets, brought to you by Empire Sports Media. I'm Spen, he's Pete. Tune in next week, and as always, catch you on the Fireside.